Day 21. Or at least sleep finally swept in over her and she fell into it deeply. On a side note, she does love and adore her parents, the gateway and welcoming committee to her arrival in this incarnation. If, as she's just said, there were kids raising kids, it's because that is all they knew. Ultimately, she knows that they used all of the tools that were available for them. She reminds herself of the epiphany she had in regards to her mother while staying at Sanctuary 143. It is enough that she carried her to term in her little body, whether or not she wanted her. She had numerous times heard her mother declare that she wished she were dead, that she never gave birth to her. All mothers go through those moments, right? Never mind. Thank you, Mum, she thinks. Her father's greatest gift, other than his contribution of her physical beingness, moving to Canada. And for that, she's epically gracious. And thank you, Dad. He wasn't around much for her formative years. Not to say he was an absentee father. He was just gone, away in Canada, working hard to bring his little but growing family over. Though she remembers bits of her childhood, as young as 3, perhaps even 2, she doesn't remember her mother very much, other than her being very angry. God bless that dear girl, who went from being a princess in her own family to being like Cinderella, living with her stepsisters. It is safe to say, though, that her prince, though it did take him some time, never lost sight of her, and eventually took her and the girls to the palace he'd created from nothing, with his own blood, sweat, and tears, sacrificing his babies for a time to make money to offer them a better life. They learned as they went along, taking notes from the Cosbys, the Seavers, and the Drummonds. Mum did suffer much, she remembers. For some time now, having transcended her own fear of the label, otherwise known as bipolar disorder, which, according to specialists, her mother, quote-unquote, has, she thinks otherwise. She now holds firm to the idea that such a thing is a blessing in disguise, a person in a different and higher realm who exists in this plane, often not understanding what is going on or why for that matter. Pure is the word that now comes to mind about her mother, so pure, so innocent, fighting the world once upon a time and the matrix of things. Docile is what the meds have made her, numb, but she still has one foot in the higher realm, where often, in dream state, she sees those who have transitioned, who are no longer on the physical plane, including the gurus of the religion she practices, or they practice rather. She is truly blessed, no? She is a blessing, as is Dad. It is not true that opposites attract, that they might seem to be. They are not opposites. They are one in the same, both vibrating at the same frequency, whatever that is. Let us call it the frequency of love. Unconditional love for one another. The 2 kids who had an arranged marriage, which was virtually decided, whilst one sat in a taxi and the other outside looking in. Done deal, and so it is. They're the most adorable pair in the world, whom she loves so very much and holds very dear to her heart. Contrary to her adolescent raging blood and criticism of them, they did know what love was, unconditional. So she allows herself to just pause now and thank them for everything. A word, forgiveness. The word that came to her last night before she allowed the day to dissipate. It had little to do with her parents, and everything to do with herself, of course. She does, here and now, forgive herself. Staring up at the protrusion from the ceiling, she sees waves of energy pass, staring at that one spot until she sees that familiar blue shimmer coming from it, surrounding it. Don't know. Nonetheless, she's furthermore comforted. Flashes of inspired thought. She calls it so because dots connect. More dots connect. And what did not make sense whilst she was still in it now makes sense, having stepped just slightly out of it. Right beside the matrix, let's say. It is an interesting game. Before we come to the cat analogy, here's something really funny. So many synchronicities at the same time. It's a whole symphony of fireworks, and all this, a manifestation of her mind. Where to begin? Okay, let's start here. The woman sat in front of her looks resoundingly like a dear soulmate and fellow dragon, whom she thought of just yesterday. There's a song that's playing, Don't Go Chasing Waterfalls, which ties in with the cat, though boy did she laugh to herself. It's an old and favourite song by an 80s group called TLC, which happens to stand for This Little Cookie, or, according to Michael Jackson, Tender Love and Care. The last of the synchronicities in this scene? There was a member of TLC called Left Eye, who she did most relate to, the little cheeky roughneck. Left Eye transitioned many years ago, though funnily she'd only just thought of her yesterday morning after such a long time, looking in the mirror and seeing that her eye was bleeding. Left eye, she laughed, without a worry in the world. What is it you're telling me? I'm listening. Cats. Let's go back there. Now then, cats, we might agree, are very, very clever creatures. Why do cats chase their tails, though? This was a question posed in one of the films she'd viewed lately, the last one, which gave her much to think about. Quote-unquote, Destination, which she watched for the second time after many years, and this time it made sense. As much sense as to why a cat chases its tail. It's nothing of a riddle, and rather straightforward, because it does not recognize it as its own. So what, right? Well, there's the famous book by Paulo Coelho called The Alchemist. The boy in search of the treasure, a treasure, finds it right where he began, before his long and arduous journey, which we all know is ultimately fruitful. But what if he didn't chase in the first place? Ooh, a wave of nausea comes over her just now, like she might actually vomit. Stop. Take a few breaths. And just be. She did. Right. What if he didn't chase in the first place? What if he stopped everything, herding the sheep and wandering, looking for more outside of himself? What if he'd learned or maintained what eventually becomes lost knowledge during and in continuation after birth? If he already knew that he was the treasure and didn't have to search for that which he already was or is, and call unto himself anything within his imagination, well then, he'd not have had that journey upon which he experienced so many life lessons. But, and a big but at that, if he already knew the secret, imagine how much more exciting the story would be. She even considered writing to Mr. Coelho himself, posing the alternate version to the famous tale as a collaboration of sorts. Maybe. The boy, he wondered, he dreamed, he stopped everything, he removed all distractions, he focused on his self, and instead of doing, he decided to be, realizing that he was the treasure. The end. No, not the end. The tale will continue, but in a new paradigm, and with an immense shift from the original tale, where the boy becomes the genie of his self, being aligned with the treasure that he is. All of life becomes available to him. He's grounded, he's knowing, he's generous, he lives heaven on earth, in the state of love, unconditional love. So why the chase? Why, oh why do we chase our tail? She didn't even wonder this question early this day when the answer was coming to her. Our natural, love-driven system has been overridden, reprogrammed, so to speak. So take the film Destination, for example. It's like a finger being pointed at us saying, hey, we got you. Or, not enough? How about Groundhog Day or Doctor Strange, the latest Bond even? We're programmed to fight, and to fight ourselves at that. We're programmed to chase our own tail for someone else's benefit. Time to go and leave this place. The nausea again, as the smell of meat frying, blood boiling and seizing carries on. Time to just go now. Thank you for listening. It's a pleasure to do these recordings, and I hope you get something from them. Lots of love to you. Until next time.